My name's Thomas McNaughton from restaurant Flour and Water in San Francisco. We're sitting above the restaurant and making tortellini and brodo. It's one of my favorite recipes. I spent most of my time in Italy in Bologna. Tortellini and brodo is a classic dish from behind the old walls of Bologna, and it's something that is such a benchmark to their cuisine tradition and speaks so many layers of the food that they've developed throughout the years in Italy, and one of the things closest to my heart. The reason I wanted to make tortellini and brodo today was it speaks in lengths of how we approach our pasta program. Tortellini and brodo is such a classic dish, and there's little tweaks from house to house, but the dish is so incredibly classic. And I feel like we remain true to the region, the history behind the dish, but we always kind of put our little twist on it. When I was leaving Bologna to open the restaurant Flour and Water, Marcello, a friend and kind of a food historian, pulled me aside. He basically wanted me to assure him that tortellini is to be served in brodo. It's something where if I ever left Bologna and I started a restaurant, I have to serve tortellini and brodo. That's how serious he took it. It is such like a warm spiced broth and filling, and a lot of times you see it served in the winter time, but we have all these amazing new greens that we're gonna serve the dish with today. So this is kind of, it's 90% traditional tortellini and brodo, 10% our little twist on it. We've created an entire room to create our pastas, and we call it the dough room. So we could really take it seriously and have enough space and time into producing a lot of kilos of pasta every single day. And one of the things about tortellini and brodo is that it's not made with a typical pasta machine. So a metal laminator you see all over Italy, they don't exist in the old walls of Bologna, and everything's rolled out by mozzarella that's long rolling pin. They say that in Bologna, pasta that comes from a metal roller or laminator is slippery pasta. It has two very smooth metal surfaces that you're shoving this noodle through. This mozzarella is so special because it's a wooden pin rolled over a wooden board, and wood's like a really porous nature to it. So every single time that you're rolling this dough and rolling it out, it's creating all these little nooks and crannies on the surface of the pasta. It's something very distinct. It's not the pasta that we make today for this dish doesn't look like the pasta that we would make pappardelle with. And it's a very distinct style of making a noodle, and serving it in broth kind of shines or shows off that the textures. The filling of tortellini and brodo has always changed from house to house, or whose mother made it, or whose tradition. And traditionally, it's usually cured pork like mortadella or prosciutto from the same region, massive amount of Parmesan cheese and warm spices. It's funny because I feel like people talk about terroir with grapes all the time, and they don't necessarily talk about it with food. And this pork that we're using for the filling comes from 45 minutes above the city, a farm called Devil's Gulch. It's a breed of Berkshire, but it has a really distinct taste to me. And it's more important for me to use that pork and be able to have a distinct taste to it. And you know, they're raising this amazing pork halfway across the country. I'm not necessarily interested in using it. I don't think it has a distinct voice in what we should be doing in this region. It's usually served in a capon or a pork broth. I really love green flavors with warm spices, and it doesn't really make that much sense, and it kind of contradicts each other, but you know, I love having that warm spiced broth and having these vegetal kind of bites, and as you eat it, it kind of changes, whether you get a little mustard, nasturtium, miner's lettuce. I've always said that Flour and Water can't be picked up and put in the middle of Rome and be a successful Italian restaurant. You have to play with the area that you're in, the guests or the clientele that you have coming to you have a certain palate. We have an amazing repertoire to pull from the Bay Area, and that's our farms or how seasonal and how important that is to us. And so, you know, this dish is 90% classic tortellini and brodo, and then maybe 10% our little riff. And I think that's really important that we put our own little stamp on. This is distinctly Flour and Water, or this is distinctly San Francisco or Bay Area cuisine or Northern California cuisine, and just kind of expands from there.